Next up, we're going to kind of zoom forward. Trevor Datson.
Very much, and thank you, Alison. I actually visited your pylon.
Did you?
I did.
Was it all right?
Still there. It was still there. But then truth is stranger than fiction. Anyway, so from Iain's introduction to the book, what he doesn't say is, and what everybody will see when they've got their copy, is that he, within the space of a few lines, he replaces Guildford Cathedral with the Palais de Justice in Brussels and installs a strange and mysterious beast in the bowels. Now it's a few weeks since, or it's a few months actually, since we put these together, and I sort of wondered what happened to the controller. Rather than read from my section in this book, I thought I would explore what might have happened to those characters, and so here we are. I should also say that my contribution to this book was based in Brookwood Cemetery, called The Survivors. The beast was ailing. In fact, he was dying. To begin with, the evidence that reached me was ambiguous, spectral even, abnormal normality. For the first time in months, I saw weak, milky sunshine and the premature bursting of crocus buds that were then slaughtered by a vicious frost. Still, there was no real news, or none that gave hope. Here is the number who have died. Here the number awaiting death. Having filed my own report from the vast necropolis, having compiled those submitted by the disappeared envoys into a single grey volume, I awaited my orders. For long weeks, none came. I knew where the controller might be found, but I was loath to venture far from the empty crypt in which I was sheltered, and to which food and medicine were brought by hands unseen, yes, perhaps even by my forgiving angels. But then, after the solstice, came little messages of hope. An unfamiliar chalk mark on a granite slab, an arrow perhaps pointing towards the south, the return of the deer nuzzling the young grass that skirted woods fertilized by the buried generations of London's poor. One day I heard but did not see the shunting of a train carriage, iron squealing on iron, wooden panels rattling, the gentle collision of buffers. I knew this was an impossibility, but I also knew what it meant. I walked all morning. The controller was waiting among the piles of ruddy brown rubble that would strewn it like scree across the crest of that forlorn hill. In lieu of greeting, he stooped to pick up a single brick, tossing it to me as I approached. On it was my father's name, signed in his own sprawling hand, one of 250,000 to which the people of his generation had subscribed. At first, this seemed remarkable, but soon I saw that every brick bore that same inscription. It made sense to me then, but now I'm less certain of everything. The controller had our orders. He had been posted to lands where the plague was still in the ascendant. The next day he would leave for the court of Atahualpa. He reached out his hand in an almost forgotten gesture. At first I recoiled, but then I understood and shook it. The touch of human skin was strange and disquieting. But the controller was smiling. Come, he said, guiding me to the eastern slope that led down towards the remnants of the city. We're returning. And in the valley below was a camp, canvas tents pitched in square formation. It was hard not to think of a field dressing station from some forgotten conflict. But the uniforms were white, the patients amorphous. We moved closer. Here and there on benches and gurneys, I could see the huge chrysalids splitting the grey skin of their cocoons, elongated masses transformed back into beings at the bite of a silver needle, almost human, possessed of a quiescent soul. We continued on towards the pastures beyond the river. The patients were everywhere, ash-coloured skin sacks lying among the weeds of overgrown parks, on escarpments, awaiting the healing sun. And I fancied I could even hear hearts beginning to beat, pumping hemoglyph to straighten contorted limbs, arthropods reclaiming their human form. They were the survivors. It will be months yet before we are all awakened. In the meantime, I'm garrisoned alone in this abandoned hostel, just one among a cluster on the northern face of the hill. I chose this unlovely place for sentimental reasons. I lived here, part boy, part man, at the time of the first pestilence, a virus more deadly still, more perniciously selective. Before the controller departed, we searched the temple ruins for one particular item. A yellowed tourist plan led us to the location of the small treasury beyond the regimental chapel. All night we shifted bricks and concrete. Towards the morning, we uncovered the battered hoard of crosses and chalices and salvers, relics of a society of faith. And there we found the large and ornate censer. At this moment that the envoy's reports had been painstakingly filed from each corner of the grid. It was for this that I had bound them into the definitive record of the plague year. It was here that the knowledge was stored, and with that knowledge, the suffering. Everything distilled into this one volume, in this singular place, at this unique time. We suspended the censer by its heavy gilt chains from the arm of a dowdy cross that protruded awkwardly through the rubble. In it, we placed the dossier, and there we burned the record of the plague year. Now, I wait. I don't think it will be too long before humans return to the halls of my deserted garrison. And when they do, I will fulfill my orders. At first light on a spring morning, I will scramble to the top of the highest rubble escarpment. And as the sun gathers strength over Pewley Down and the river basin beyond, I will take the censer and whirl it around my body as if it were an ancient chain mace, faster, even faster, and ever faster, with joy turning to exultation. I will scatter the ashes of the plague year into the young, playful breeze, screaming the last rites for the tormented beast. Then, picking my way down through the overgrown lanes of Whitmore Common and Maybury, I will begin to erase these sad stories of my own imagination. I will start my longed-for journey home.
Brilliant. Thank you, Trevor. That's a really interesting way to respond to the call for a reading.